Okay, Bismillah, Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala Rasulullah. Let's just record it normally because I tried this live streaming about 4 or 5 times. It failed every single time. So I'm just going to record it normally and inshallah you'll still get the benefit. There can't be any questions and answers though. However, if you have any questions, put them in the chat, in the comment section, and I'll get back to you inshallah. Okay, what's the topic today? The dangers of Arabic occult books and manuscripts. This is not an exaggerated danger, it's very real. Especially when we're talking about closed practices, okay? And this is very much a closed practice, that's our whole system. What are the dangers of these books? And by the way, I am talking about both the classical manuscripts, like the old ancient ones from hundreds of years ago, and I'm also talking about the pop occultism ones, and like the published books, you know, that take from this manuscript and that one and like put something together. So whether it's Tuqi, Atiyya, Abdul Hamid, Nineveh, all of them, this applies, and this criticism will apply to all of these books. Okay, this is a translation of a lesson that I wrote here about this exact topic in my Sheikh's Telegram group. So if you want to be added to the best occult group, check out this Telegram group. It's called Academiyat al-ruhaniyat, and yeah, come join us there. There's regular lessons all the time, so you'll always get some benefit. Okay, what are the dangers of these books? Several. First, it doesn't clarify what you're dealing with. What type of jinn? Are you dealing with a celestial or terrestrial or chthonic or even satanic? You could be dealing with anything, and none of these books would specify this spirit belongs to this category. It's all jumbled mess, especially Tuqi and Atiyya's books. They're notorious for this. Second problem with them, there's always mistakes, there's always additions, there's omissions in literally every single conjuration or call. So as a rule of thumb, if you get your hands on a manuscript, whether it's a old manuscript or any of these new books, you can't just try it exactly as it is. Because even the ancient manuscripts, they're not written for the layman to just pick up and carry out exactly how it's written. They're written with encryptions, and they need you to reverse engineer it to make it work, or decrypt it. You have to decrypt all the encryptions. And they expect someone who already knows the art and knows all the fundamentals and all the rules to carry out these operations, okay? So that's what you'll have mistakes, there's additions and omissions. And you'll have to figure out what each of those are and reverse engineer all of them. Okay, what next? They will all tell you to repeat each name twice. This is bad because let's say you're taking a conjuration, and today I received a question about the Barhadiyya in my email. With the Barhadiyya, not all of the manuscripts, but most of them will tell you to repeat each name twice. Now, I can recite the Barhadiyya and just say each of the names once. I can do it and say each name twice. I can do it and say each name 3 times. I can do it and say some of the names twice and some of the names 6 times. There's many ways to work with the barhadiyya. However, and same with there's many ways to work with all the different conjurations. However, specifically with the barhadiyya, since that's the question I was asked in the email, the book's telling you to repeat each name twice. You should not be doing that. That will call on the chthonic. So, whether that's an honest mistake by the author or they intentionally put it there, it doesn't make a difference, because you're no longer dealing with, here, this is what you want to be dealing with. Because if you have these, you can command these with the celestial. So celestial will command the terrestrial below him, and he'll command the chthonic below him, and and usually the chthonic will carry out most of these tasks that you set out. But you do them by reaching out to the celestials of the conjuration. So when you repeat each name twice, that's not what you're doing. And you're going straight to here and here. And that's why it's a big mistake. Right. No izin. So, what is the izin? Spiritual permission. That name doesn't really cover what the izin is, so let's elaborate further. When you enter this art the right way, through a lineage, a notable lineage, your sheikh would have got the izin from his sheikh before him, and from his teacher before him, and so on and so forth. And you will get an uninterrupted chain from the beginning till today for these conjurations, specifically the barhadiyya, or all of these conjurations in general. So each of the Sufi orders will have their own set of prayers and their own set of teachings. These can only be done by those who have the bay'ah in that order. So I can't just go in and take a Tijani work and just do it like this, because I don't have the izn for it. Likewise, for the Ruhani conjurations, so like the Barhadiyya, for example, like the lunar names, like the Jaljalutiyya, you will need the izn. What is it? Your sheikh, who already had the izn to go into the seclusion for this conjuration and served it and reached the top of it, can now bring you in, and he'll call up the spirits of the conjuration and introduce you, and you will be under his protection, meaning any problems that you might get will be solved almost automatically. One of the problems that Ruhani operations have is a group of shayateen called al-Aytalush, and they have only one objective, and it is to ruin any Ruhani works. If you have the izn and you have the lineage and the permission on all the rest of it, they wouldn't even come close to you, and your sheikh will be protecting you. So how is the izn given? Well, he calls up the spirits of this conjuration that you're about to enter into, and he sends from his spirits one small servant to bring you into this art, into this lineage, and into this conjuration, and into this service that you're about to take. Okay? So that's the importance of it. You don't get that with any of the books. They all pretend that lineage doesn't matter, and permission and izn don't matter. They matter greatly. And you can find that out the hard way. Go ahead, I'm not stopping you. Or you can enter it the correct way. Okay, they don't explain the foundations and the sciences that they don't explain the foundations of these sciences. Okay, these arts are complicated. There's a lot of different rules. There's rules about timing, there's rules about the location and the type of work that can be done in the type of location, and what work and what operations to be done at what times. There's a lot of different rules that are foundations of this art. These books won't spell them out. You're expected to know them through your teacher. So you're going to be carrying out conjurations and just reading off out of the book without knowing the basics of why does this conjuration work. I mean, you getting a set of words and you're repeating them. Why should there be any change by reading out a set of words? Or, well, you're not supposed to read it out, you're supposed to memorize it before starting it, okay? So you memorize the words and then you started. Why should there be any spiritual effect from these words that you're saying? That's the foundations, and that's what's missing from these books. Okay, I'm using the article I wrote as notes for this discussion. Something I missed out: al-muwazin, the scales. For example, there'll be some names, some conjurations that will have 7 names. These will need a 7-fold scale. Then you have the conjurations that are on the 4-fold scale. The Barhatiyya itself, like I was asked today, is 28 names, and each of them is associated with a letter of Alif. Each name in the Barhatiyya is associated with a letter of the alphabet, and each one is associated with a lunar mountain. So they have to be weighed in accordance to that. Okay? So you have the Iqal scale. Mizan Iqal. Okay, well that's for the Barhatiyya. The 7-fold scale, that will be for the Tahatil. For the lunar names, Asma al-Qamar. Any kind of conjuration that has 7 names in it will enter into this scale. There's the 3x3 square scale. No, I don't need to draw out the whole 3x3 square, everyone knows that. But there's a whole separate scale for that, and the conjurations that enter into that. Okay? None of these books will tell you how these conjurations were formed in the first place and where they're extracted from. Okay? So, which conjuration was extracted from Surah Al-Kawthar? which conjuration was extracted from the Psalms of King David alayhi salam. These kind of things you just expected to know, and that's why part of this is an oral tradition, right? Let me pause this 1 second. So, these areas of the art are expected to be handed down from the teacher to the student. And that's why none of the books would discuss them. You will say, okay, well, what about the books about the squares and the grids? Right? So we're no longer talking about the conjurations. Okay, this is all the problems you can get with the conjurations. What about with talismans like this? So you'll get a lot of things that look like this in our art. And you get the, okay, how are these constructed, and what are they for, and what's the difference between meh, he, be, he, ne, he, se, he, okay? And all the different numbers that you'll get, and all the different symbols. Well, all of this is explained like through your teacher, yeah? None of these are explained just through the books alone. So how to construct these and how to work them and what they represent in the first place, a lot of that is omitted. Even in the manuscripts that strictly talk about these symbols and these kind of symbols, and there's like hundreds of these different alphabets that are used, and they're constructed in different ways. So for example, one way to construct it, let's take one of the names of the Barhatiyya, for example, Mazgalin. Okay, this is one way to construct a talisman for it. And this is the correct way to write the name, by the way. To the guy who asked me about the Barhatiyya, this name was one of the names that's written incorrectly, and they wrote it Margalin instead of Mazgalin. And that's just incorrect. It's just a spelling error, and every single name in that picture that you sent me of that book, all of the names in the Barhatiyya are wrong. That's one way to write the talisman of it. And there's a specific pen, if you want to hide it, then there's one specific pen that is used specifically for the Barhatiyya, and no other conjuration. So these kind of rules for the art and others are the kind of rules that you don't get explained in the books. So you will see a lot of talismans in the book, and I'll tell you, okay, well, this talisman for this and this talisman's for that. You're supposed to break every single one of those down yourself before using it. Because once you do that, you'll see, oh, okay, here's where it went wrong. Here's what they intentionally left out. Then you have like different symbols that will be used in the books. So, for example, this is one. If you see this or anything like this in any manuscript, just leave that alone, walk away. You're not ready for that smoke. But that's how they tell you what you're dealing with, right? It's a lot of these symbols that are just not written about in the books, and you're expected to find them through your teacher or through direct communications with your spirits, either through this scrying mirror or through these kind of means, right? So the foundations of the art, they're missing. Story time. Okay. Well, this is one young man who's has a great deal of interest in this art, but he always likes to try all the different books, right? He'll try something from this book and that book and that. First problem he came to me with, he called up the spirit, and it was the Jinn King for Monday, and he didn't know how to dismiss the terrestrial spirits. He had the dismissal for the celestial but not the terrestrial, and that's the Jinn King for Monday. And you know, every day of the week has a planet associated with it and the spirit that rules over that day, right? And we know them: Mudahab, Mur al-Amir, Abu Mihrz al-Ahmar, Burqan, Abu al-Ajaib, Shamaharosh, Zawba'a al-Abyad, Maymuna Banuch, and I will be doing videos on these spirits as well, because they're the ones that's found in all of the different manuscripts, and they're all very well known, and you're gonna end up dealing with them sooner or later in this path, if this is the path that you wish to take. Okay. He called up that spirit, didn't know how to dismiss it. 3 months it stayed there. So how to start the operation, what you're supposed to do before starting the operation, how to clean up the area properly and purify it spiritually. So spiritual purifications, then you have the actual purifications and the cleaning. Like after you just clean it with the regular Dettol and Clorox and all of this, then you have to clean it out with alum and liquid storax or mi'asaila and like different herbs and like salt and different types of washes and different prayers to clean out the area. Then after that you have to get the correct incense, and before you even call the spirit up, you're supposed to know how to dismiss it afterwards, and you're also supposed to know what are the signs that the spirit arrived and is ready to do the tasks, and that it accepted the task that you're giving it. All of these things, the foundations of this art, they're not spelled out in the books. You're just expected to know it. And many more other things, but like this is enough for now. So he called up the spirit. He didn't know how to get rid of it. It stayed there for 3 months, terrorizing his whole family. And that situation was solved in 30 seconds. What's missing is the knowledge to solve that situation. But that's the kind of thing that you're just supposed to know before you starting out in this. And your teacher's supposed to tell you this. But if you're not coming in with a teacher and a lineage and an izin, then you will end up in these kind of problems. But everyone thinks they know better. This is the Dunning-Kruger effect. Always in action. Right. What about the original sources? Yes, the same. Only difference is the original sources the difference between these pop books and the original sources is the original sources will be written in a way that can be reverse engineered. They want the reader who is supposed to be able to read this and decipher it and work it to do so. Whereas these other books, whether it's Tuhi's books or Atiyah Abdul Hamid or Nineveh Chadrash's books or any of these kind of books, any of these kind of like pop occultism books, they're just writing it wrong and they're considering it to be right. They're considering this incorrect thing that they're putting out as the correct thing, whereas not, and it's not based on these fundamentals. So that's the original sources. Everything we said applies more to the original sources, and by this I mean the old manuscripts. Yeah, so Booni's books, and everyone talks about Shams al-Ma'arif. There's 15 copies, handwritten copies in Shams al-Ma'arif. All of them are different. And there's the one copy that ended up being the published ones in the modern books. And that has more mistakes and more additions and more omissions than all the other ones. So they could have picked literally any of the other versions and put that out. But they chose to put out the most corrupted one. I don't know if this was on purpose or just ignorance. But that's how it worked out. Even the original sources, let's say the Barhatiyah book, the manuscript from Al-Buni, and this is the best work of Al-Buni is منبع الأصول الحكمة. منبع أصول الحكمة. The source of the fundamentals of wisdom. And this book covers it covers 4 topics. The first is the fundamentals. And there's clear-cut mistakes in this part, but they're easy to spot if you know what to look for. The next part in this book is the squares and the grids, the magic squares, yeah? And there's also mistakes in this part. But again, if you know what to look for and how to edit it, you can fix these. That's why we say this is the best book, because it can be reverse engineered easily without too much hassle. Then you have the Barhatiyah. And finally the Jaljalutiyah. Alright, let's take this Barhatiyah section. the book will say, from the specialities of the first name, to remember everything you hear. Okay, this is what will tell you. Write the name 6 times. See, it tells you exactly what to do. But here's what it doesn't tell you. This is what they mean by write the name 6 times. They don't just mean write like that 6 times. No. Yeah, you already see what I'm doing. But we need to carry out with this. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're supposed to write it like that. This is, it'll just say write the name 6 times. Do it like that. Obviously, قوله الحق وله الملك around it. The angel names around that. And then you do this first thing in the morning while you're on empty stomach and drink that. So you write it with, saffron ink. What do I need? Oh. With a pen like this or with a feather or something like that, right? And you see, so I've been using my own ink on this. Then you drink it on the empty stomach, and then it'll give you all the desired effects, right? But without that, you just write it normally, nothing will happen. Or the best case scenario, placebo effect, which can go quite far, according to science. The placebo effect can go very far, and even heals people completely from their illnesses. So it won't be for nothing. But if you want, to be amazed by the work that you're doing, then learn it properly and do it properly. And that's the difference between taking something straight out of a book or taking something while knowing all the different fundamental principles underlying it.